Governance and Audit Committee, which is open to the press and public on request. This meeting will not be broadcast live, however, a recording will be made available as soon as possible after the meeting has concluded. We welcome the use of Welsh language at meetings. I have had no requests from people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can members attending via Microsoft Teams refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you're not talking. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, welcome and apologies. Geraint, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've got some apologies from Nigel Aurelius, Dave Lilly and Tom Roberts.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Geraint, can you ask the members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
No problem, thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley, please.
None that I'm aware of that phrase.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne?
None that I'm aware of, Geraint, thank you.
Thank you. I can't see Councillor Mark Jones. I don't think he's joined us. Councillor Peter Jones?
None, Geraint.
Thank you. Mr Kelleher?
I have a pension from Torfaen County Borough.
Yourself, Chair?
No, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Mr Rees?
I have a very small pension from Torfaen County Council from when I worked with them back in the early 2000s. On the minutes of the last meeting, I failed to declare that. I do apologise. It's because it's such a small amount, I'd completely forgotten about it. So you'll need to amend the minutes of the last meeting. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Councillor Williams?
And yeah, similarly, receipt of pension, but also a member of the Pensions Committee.
Geraint, can I come back in, please?
Yep.
My wife is in receipt of a pension from the Gwent council, and again, I didn't declare it at the last meeting because I hadn't realised. So, could the minutes be amended to reflect that, please?
Yeah, I think Chair, it's okay. I better come back in on that. I got the old Gwent graduated pension as well.
That's Councillor Ashley.
Okay, Councillor Ashley, you're coming through very quiet. I don't know if you've got a problem with your microphone, Councillor Ashley.
I've got headphones on, but I better ramp it up a bit. Sorry about that. Just a minute. Let me adjust this a minute.
Right.
Sorry, I tell you what. Is that better?
Yes.
That's better.
Yeah, I had the microphone turning the wrong way. Sorry about that. Technology.
Okay.
Yes, I got the old Gwent graduated pension, which I only get a small sum as well at the moment. So I better declare, if I didn't have it on the last minutes, could you put it on there as well, please?
Right, okay, thank you. Did you want to come back in, Chair?
Yeah, my husband's got a pension as well from Torfaen. I didn't think it was in this agenda though, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, that's everyone, I think, Chair. Oh, Justine?
Hi, Justine.
Thank you very much, Chair. The minutes of the last meeting can't be amended. The declarations weren't made at that particular time. They can be noted in these minutes. So that's what I really wish to say in relation to that matter, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So they'll be mentioned in the current minutes, but they can't be amended in the previous ones. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all. Right, agenda item 3 is the minutes of the Governance and Audit meeting, our meeting from 18th of January 2023. Members, please could you state whether you have anything raised in relation to the minutes? If not, I'll take them as agreed. I see no one indicating that they want to mention anything about the previous minutes, so I will take them as agreed. Agenda item 4 is the action sheet. Members, please could you state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the action sheet? If not, we can note its contents. Everybody's agreeing that they've seen and read the action sheet and they have no comments, so we'll note its contents. Agenda item 5 is the update report, action plan for governance and improvement. And I think we've got Councillor Joseph who's going to present the report for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and morning all. The report I'm presenting today is being reported on behalf of Tom Roberts, who's on annual leave, and it's your 6-monthly update, the action plan for governance and improvement. So the report presented provides an update on the progress made, delivering actions associated with external audit work under the portfolio of this committee. Furthermore, the report also includes details of new external audit reports or recommendations received by the Council. These will be addressed in line with the agreed reporting protocol agreed by this committee and informs the group of any scrutiny work that has been undertaken, reviewing progress made, mitigating recommendations or proposals. As noted in 4.1 of this report, Appendix 1 provides an update for March 2023 on the actions this committee is continuing to monitor. Please note, where officers feel that a recommendation has now been fully actioned, a suggestion has been made to remove from your monitor for future meetings. Providing members are happy to do so, these will be removed for future monitoring. And under 4.2 of the report, you will see that since the last Governance and Audit Committee in January 2023, there's been one new relevant external audit report. It's a national study undertaken by Audit Wales, and it's called Together We Can, Community Resilience and Self-Reliance, focused on looking at how local authorities are creating the conditions needed to help communities thrive as independently as possible. Audit Wales made 2 recommendations for the local authorities in Wales, which are included in the report. The report sits within the portfolio of the Council's Healthier Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The report and its findings will therefore be referred to this committee for future monitoring. Finally, under 4.3 of the report, you can see that there are no updates from scrutiny committees on reports being monitored, but a full review will be undertaken in June and July of this year. So that brings that presentation to an end, but I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Has anybody got any questions, please, with regards to this report? No? Are we all happy? Okay, so we'll move on to the recommendations, which are on page 21, which is reviewing the progress made as set out in the action plan to ensure appropriate action has been taken and address the recommendations previously accepted by the Council with regards to its governance and arrangements, and to note the addition and removal of regulatory reports that will be monitored by the Council's Overview and Scrutiny Committees. If you're all happy, we'll agree on those recommendations. Excellent. I can see nobody saying no. Thank you. So
Agreed.
Accept those recommendations. Thank you. Moving on now to agenda item 6, which is the Risk Management Annual Update Report. And again, Kath Joseph's going to present it.
Thanks, Chair. So the next report is the annual update that I'm providing to you. The purpose of this report is to allow you, the committee members, to undertake your assurance role by noting progress made in the last year to improve the Council's processes for the management and monitoring of all identified risks. So, members, you will be aware that risk management is the planned and systematic approach to the identification, evaluation and control of risks. The objective of risk management is to secure the assets and reputation of the Council and to ensure our continued financial and organisational well-being. Whilst it is acknowledged that some risks will always exist and never be eliminated, it is important the Council identifies, evaluates and accepts responsibility for the risks associated with its work. In our last report to this committee in March 2022, we informed members that a report had been commissioned by the Chief Executive asking us to review our current approach to risk management and to put forward any potential options to be considered to ascertain if there was more that could be done to strengthen the risk management process. A report was presented to leadership team detailing the current arrangements at that time, along with a number of options for consideration to strengthen the process further. Those options have been taken on board and implemented, and this report provides members of the committee with a breakdown of those changes, how they have been implemented, and an overview of how the risk register looks now as a result of those changes. So the Council's approach to risk management has been operational for many years, and as you will recall from previous meetings, all identified risks were captured previously on one single corporate risk register. And over the years, you will recall that each time we come to you, we are keen to make you aware how important it is that we feel that we keep reviewing the process to ensure that it is as strong as it can be, which is what we've done in effect in the last year. And this year, we'll be bringing to you a lot more changes than we've done for many years. So a review took place in the summer of 2022, and various update reports were provided to leadership team throughout that, so that members of leadership team were aware of the proposals being put forward, could question, and check that they were happy with them as we were going along. So they agreed all of the changes that we put forward, and I list them now and explain those changes to you and the reasons behind them. So we've always used a 5x5 matrix to score our risks. We are continuing to do that, but we've changed the approach that we take to it. In the past, when we've calculated a risk score, it's been the likelihood times the impact, which was given a score of anywhere between very high, high, medium and low. What we've done now is allocated numbers to all of the risk matrix. So when we continue to multiply likelihood by impact, it gives a numerical score. So that's the change that we've made. Appendix 1 shows the difference between the two matrix. As a result of that, we've introduced more than one tier of risk register. So instead of there being one register that only contains corporate risks, by using a numerical score, as I've just described, it allows for criteria to be formed so that we can set risks into a level of a tier system, depending on their scores. So there are 3 tiers on the risk register now. The corporate risk register receives scores of 15 and above. A directorate risk register scores of 9 to 15, and a service risk register on scores lower than 9. So I just want to point out at this point that all risks, regardless of their score, are still maintained on a master risk register. And that risk register is monitored by the corporate risk monitoring group on a quarterly basis, and a report also goes to leadership team every 12 weeks as part of their 12-week performance monitoring. The next stage was that we considered introducing different monitoring times or review periods for risks, but what we agreed was that the corporate risk group and leadership team would still review risks on a quarterly basis, the same as they've always done. But we gave discretion to the strategic directors as to how they would like to monitor the different tiers of risk within their world before bringing their risk updates to us on a quarterly basis. So that's down to their discretion. They can do that however regularly that they like, as long as it's quarterly, and they do that within their teams and directorates. And then the final change in this part of the report is that we've asked for more detailed commentary to be provided on how the risks are mitigated. So you may well recall that in the past we've asked 3 questions of officers when they're updating their risks. So we ask what has been done in the past quarter to mitigate it, has there been any impact, and if there's been no change, why? But what we found is many of the risks are longer term risks than that. They're not likely to change, and we wouldn't expect them to change quarter on quarter. So what we've said now is if a risk is described as treatable, where we feel there are mitigations to it, then when can we expect to see de-escalation of risk? And we've added a new column where they can say, these are the activities that we are going to undertake, and we think they will make a change by X date. And then when we review on that date, if those changes haven't taken place and the risk remains the same, discussions can take place with the service area and within leadership team to find out why that is. Have all the mitigations taken place? If so, and there's been no change, what are the reasons for that? Are new mitigations needed? Have there been resource issues? Is there more assistance that is required? Or have we come to the conclusion that we've taken all the mitigations that are possible, but that risk is still there, in which case we then treat it as a tolerate risk, where we accept that that is one that won't be eliminated off the register. So it's a very big change. Officers are being asked now to give us a time scale to expect when we can see movement. So they were the initial changes. And during September, both myself and Nigel, as chair of the Corporate Risk Group, went to every directorate and sat with them and talked them through the changes, answered any questions and led them through the way so that everyone was familiar with the approach before we started monitoring at Q2. So we've now done Q2 monitoring in the new format and Q3. So as at Q3, which is the most up-to-date details that we've got, the risk register, oh, I've missed a bit. The other thing that we've done is, as a result of all of these changes, it's important that any guidance or policy documents have been changed. So the guidance document to help officers has been changed, and our risk management policy has been changed. Both of those are on Appendix 2 and 3 respectively, and they're available on the internet site as well. So at Q3, the risk register now holds 54 risks, and those risks are made up of 14 on the corporate tier, 23 on the directorate, and 17 on the service tier. 16 out of the 54 risks are new risks that have come on board since the review. And attached at Appendix 4 is a copy of the risk register. But I do want to draw your attention at this point, because that sounds quite startling, that we've now got 54 risks, 16 of them are new. It makes people think, oh, what's going on? What I'd like to bring to your attention at this point is, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we only looked at corporate risks previously, where now we're bringing lower level risks from the service areas up. So it's not suddenly something to panic about. It's just that where the risks were being monitored behind the scenes, if you like, and then if they needed to be elevated, suddenly they rose with no warning. Now they sit at a service level, they're monitored by the service area, but if there are things going on with those risks where they feel that they need to move up the register, everyone's away from an early stage and we can work with them to find out why rather than having any surprises. That's basically the reason for doing that. So the final and most recent change that has taken place is that in the past, when I've brought this report to you, I've brought it on behalf of the Corporate Governance and Risk Management Group. That group has been disbanded. Any governance issues are now dealt with under the Resources SLT team, and the Corporate Risk Management Group now only concentrate on risks. And we believe the benefit of that change is that we can give more of our time to concentrating on risks. In previous years, we found that much of our time in our meetings is taken up with governance issues and less time available for us on risks, whereas now all of our time, the meeting times haven't reduced. We still meet at exactly the same period on a quarterly basis for 2.5 hours, and all of that time is given to risks now. So we think that that is another benefit to the process. So to conclude, the group is proactive in their work in relation to the management and monitoring of risks, and we strive to add items on the work programme going forward to improve further, which we can demonstrate by the changes we've made now. As members of the Governance and Audit Committee, we feel that you can be assured that the Council's process for the identification and monitoring and the management of its risks is now even more robust and is being effectively implemented, although we do believe that the new process will take some time to get fully embedded across all directorates. But we can demonstrate that the implications of risk in delivering services for citizens, both in terms of threats to service position and potential lost opportunities, are monitored this way. So members are invited to note the progress made to date, to further embed the process across all directorates for the identification of any risks facing the Council and for the management and monitoring of those risks on a quarterly basis throughout the year. So I'll leave it there, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. It sounds as if an awful lot of work has gone into this big change. With regard to the risks, can I just ask, with regard to the risks that are tolerable, are they still monitored?
Absolutely, yeah. Every quarter we still get a review from each of the relevant officers that say what mitigations have taken place, because sometimes we can mitigate to keep it at a level. We can reduce it and we can remove it, but we can keep it where it is. So yeah, they're still monitored every quarter.
Thank you. Right, I see some hands raised. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of who raised their hands first, so should we start with Councillor Ashley?
It's absolutely fascinating process. I read it several times to get my head round it, Kath. And what I find interesting is you've gone from something which is largely a descriptor process, the original, through to something that's got numbers. Are you intending to digitalise this process so it alerts you using numerics? I think I've got the right expression for it. I'm no expert at this, although I did do some management training some time ago in stuff like this. Is it going to alert you, on sort of spreadsheet or whatever you've got in place there? Because it looks like it is. The various loadings on there, by the look of it, obviously you start with a sort of with the stuff that's alerting you heavily, and then working your way through. And as you said about stuff that you can't ignore there. I mean, I'm fascinated by how this works, the process, as it were. But it looks like you've taken it away from a prose-based through to something that's got numerics in there, which obviously is a bit more automatic. Is that the intention?
We haven't digitised it as such in a way that it would automatically alert us, but obviously the scores are calculated, and every quarter when officers review their risks, if they need to rescore it, we can obviously see what level of change is taking place, whereas before, although we would have had the scores, it could have potentially jumped from low to medium, but we can see the level of jump because of the numerics within it. And although in the report it doesn't look like it's a spreadsheet, it is a spreadsheet in the background.
It's obvious
so
it is, yeah.
Yeah, we can search on it, we can, put filters on to find the risks for the certain directorates, we can search on scores, and like the new column in there as well, it can identify when the next period of review is for risks that we expect to move by a timescale.
Chair, can I just come back very quickly? One of the common comments in scrutiny over the time I've done it, and not just from me, but from members on scrutiny committees, has always been the differentiation between comments that people make and actual data. And this process looks like it's got that added into it, which I think scrutiny members will probably welcome, because I've heard that so often. And you've also put that extra column in, which somebody's been listening to what scrutiny members have wanted. So I welcome that, but it's obviously add the logic of numbers in, obviously, because the danger of comments is how you measure comments. It's the old qualitative versus quantitative discussion. Am I not? I hope I'm not being too technical on that, but that's always a problem, and I think scrutiny gets itself a little bit tangled up sometimes on that one. The risk registers, you should not get yourself tangled up. They should be very explicit about what the problems are.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. I think that this will make it more explicit. Thank you for that point.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
I agree that the move to the numerics, which is a sort of standard approach really often with risk management, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, for new members of the committee like myself, we haven't had a previous report to see, so it is relatively new. So positive to see that. Second point, well, these are somewhat minor details in a way, but my first point is that given the fact there's been this change around, the risk reference, which clearly seems to relate to some previous iteration of a risk register, really has no significance anymore. So it may be better to almost renumber to make it easier to reference. My second point would be it would be very helpful for any overseeing group to sort of know which are the newly identified risks highlighted in some way, because obviously we've been told there are 16 new risks, but we've got no idea which they are within this overall matrix. And the other thing, whilst each individual column is very clear in itself, row rather, the ordering, I could see that there's a value perhaps in ordering risks in terms of levels of severity, or ordering risks in terms of the owner. It does seem to jump around from corporate to directorate, corporate, different owners, and that makes oversight a little difficult So I would suggest there could be a better way of perhaps presenting the information to break down the risks by directorate area or by significance. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the reference numbers do relate to numbers of risks that were always on the register and we just keep adding to. We could change them. However, as soon as a risk drops off, those numbers are always going, there'll always be gaps between the numbers, because if a risk is deleted, which they often are once the mitigations have taken place, so for example, if we had 1 to 5 and 3 and 4 were deleted, they would always be 1, 2, 5, so there's always going to be jumps, but I will look into that and see if there's anything else that we can do. In the column current direction of travel, it does indicate whether a risk is new. However, that is per quarter. So the only risks that show new this quarter are the ones that have come on board in quarter 3. So that, again, that changes. But if you are interested, I can provide you with the risks that have been new onto the register. That's no problem at all. I can provide you with details of those. And then for the way that we set it out, you know, we do set it out so that the corporate risks, those high-level risks, are always the ones that are on the top. And then it goes down to directorate and then service. In this, it very much looks like it's a Word document, but as I expressed to Councillor Ashley, the working document that we use is an Excel spreadsheet, so we can filter into any way. So we could filter it into by directorate, or we could filter it, you know, by score. There's any number of ways that we can do that. So we can have a look at the way that it's described, and if we think there's something better we can use, we'll certainly take that on board.
Thank you, Kath. Does that answer your question, Councillor Williams?
Yes, I think so. I think, you know, given the fact you've taken a fresh approach, this is perhaps the time to take the fresh approach all the way through to actually start looking at the numbering again and the ordering. So, you know, I would just draw attention to, is it page 77, where you've got directorate risk and then at number 39 and then a corporate risk at number 46. So that's why the point I made about sequential didn't seem to be quite there. So, but thank you very much for the response.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne, I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if there would be any sort of way of seeing the costings of the risks, what they're estimated going to cost in that at all. Is that possible, or is that not?
We don't ask for costings. We get a template, a new risk template from officers as risks are put forward. They express what the risk is and they score it, and then they provide us with mitigating activities to reduce that, but we don't ask for financial information.
Right, so there's no way of that at all then, is there? Or
the only thing I can add, I think if some of the proposed risks are of significant financial value, I think they'd come up in the commentary. I think most of the actions taken are relatively cost neutral, to be honest with you. So, but I think if certain risks would cost a significant financial sum, I think there'd be a sort of weighing up of the benefit of the cost versus the benefit of implementing it. But I'm not aware of any of these risks have had any sort of not been actioned due to a lack of resources or finances in the past. I don't know if that helps, Councillor Byrne.
yeah, well, like I said, like Councillor Williams said, we're fairly new to this, so just asking obviously questions with regards to it to get a bit of an insight on how it goes on. You know, still takes a bit to obviously understand what's going on with it, and it's obviously going to take a while because, like I said, it's only been. Well, we had just a fair few, not a lot of meetings between us, so it's just going to take a bit of time, that's all. But thanks.
We're all on a learning curve, I think, aren't we? Thank you. And I think it was explained very well. Thank you for that, Cal. Right, if there are no other questions with regard to this report, the recommendations are on page 54 of your agenda. You're invited to note the progress made to date to further embed a process across all directorates for the identification of any risks facing the Council and the management and monitoring of those identified risks on a quarterly basis throughout the year. can I assume, if anyone's got any complaints or queries, can they put their hands up? Otherwise, I'll assume it's accepted. Right, I can see lots of noddings and thumbs. Thank you very much. So we'll accept those recommendations. Thank you, Cal. Right, moving on to agenda item 7, which is the Audit Wales update from Colin Davis. I think you're going to present this report for us.
Good morning, everybody. I think I should introduce myself first of all. Colin Davis, I'm the Performance Audit Manager for delivering the Audit Wales performance work at the Council. You'd be more familiar with Bethan Roberts, my colleague, but Bethan's on leave this week, so she asked me to step in for her. I mean, I'm happy to take your covering report. I think Tom, who was also on leave, put the report together. And I think the papers that you have in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 attached are the regular progress update that comes quarterly to the committee. And the purpose of that progress report is just to demonstrate where we are in terms of delivering not just the performance audit work, but the financial audit work at the council. And I can see Julie's also in on the call if you have any questions to raise on the financial side. I mean, I don't propose to go through all of the details on the progress report. It's how many pages long? It's 14 pages long. But I mean, suffice it to say, I think that the performance audit work is either ongoing or is complete. The report is dated the 31st of December, so it's not completely up to date. There's been some movement on it. For example, on page 1, the annual audit summary says it's imminent. Well, you'll see it's attached to the Appendix 2. So that report has been completed. It's an annual summary report that we issue to all 22 councils in Wales, summarising the work done over the year. So there's no new news in that for you as members of the Governance Committee. It's a summary of reports that you've already seen and had shared with you. On page 2, the old work, if you like, is the 2021 programme. There's a local risk-based project on performance management. That's described as ongoing. That work is now concluding. I know Bethan shared the messages arising from that work with us, and we'll be feeding back to the council on that work to officers initially, and that will be happening in the near future. On page 3, the assurance and risk assessment work, we still have the bulk of that work is done, but we still have the bullet points on capital programme management and the use of performance information to undertake. The setting of wellbeing objectives is complete, and we've just agreed the report on that with officers, and so we'll be sharing that with the council and putting it on our website. So the report on the setting of wellbeing objectives will come to your next committee meeting, I'm sure. Thematic review, unscheduled care, that's a cross-sector review that we're doing in all areas of Wales, with all of the health boards and with all of the council bodies. That work is still ongoing. It's been a little delayed. It's something that we're doing by using our central team resources rather than Bethan and I, but that work is still ongoing. So no messages to share with you at this point. Following page 4, the digital thematic review has gone from scoping and is now in progress, but we've still a way to go on that. Our local project for 22-23, our focus has been on waste management, which, as you probably know, is an issue for the council in terms of the council's performance against statutory recycling targets. That work is now concluding. I know I've seen a draft report cross my desk. So again, we'll be sharing the results of our work with officers initially in the very near future on that. So those are the updates to the actual report that you've got in front of you. The rest of the report relates pretty much to national work and also the work of Estin and the Care Inspectorate. There has only been one new national report, and that was raised with you in an earlier item 5, I think, in relation to the Community Resilience Report. Appendix 2, as I say, is the annual summary, which summarises reports you've seen before. I don't intend to go through that, but if members have any questions on anything relating to that, I'll be happy to take them. I think that's all I wanted to say. Julie, did you want to update members on the financial side at all?
Thank you, Colin. Good morning, everyone. Very, very briefly from myself, since the last meeting, as it sets out in the report, we've signed the Auditor General signed the accounts on the 27th of January. And just by way of update on the audit of the 21-22 grant claims, the report on page 94 states we've had 4 audits complete. We've now completed 5 of the 6 audits, and we've just got the housing benefit audit, of which our testing's complete. We're just drawing conclusions and drafting the report now for agreement with management. So hopefully getting that completed very shortly. And just by way of update on the grants audit, of the 5 audits that have been completed, 2 were qualified, but I haven't got any issues in terms of significance to draw to your attention as those charged with governance regards those matters. So, yeah, they're all complete. So I haven't anything further on the 21-22 programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both. Has anybody got any questions on this report? Councillor Jones, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Colin, you mentioned the work on waste and recycling. I mean, that's a very hot topic for the council at the moment, as we've just entered the public consultation. When is your report likely to be published on that?
Well, in terms of publication, at the moment, the report is in draft and it's being dealt with in our internal processes, so it hasn't been shared with officers yet, but I do anticipate that being shared with officers, if not this week, then certainly next week. And then we go through our internal clearance processes, which can take up to, we generally give the council 2 weeks to check our reports for factual accuracy, raise any queries they have with us, identify any further evidence that they think we should consider. So that process can take a couple of weeks. So it could be 3 to 4 weeks away before that final report is published on our website. And that's probably my best estimate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else got any questions, queries, anything you want to raise? No. I see no other hands. Thank you both for presenting that report. If everybody's happy, then we'll move on to the recommendations, which are on page 92, which are, we just note the progress made by this Audit Wales report. If everybody's happy, I'll take them as agreed. Thank you, everyone. We'll take them as agreed. Thank you both. I don't know whether you're staying with us or disappearing, but thank you for your help. We'll move on.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on now to agenda item 8, which is the internal audit progress against operational plan 2022-23. Peter Williams, you're going to present the plan.
Thank you, Chair. The routine update on progress against the agreed internal audit plan for 2022-23. Even a bit of an update since I wrote this, actually. I wrote this about 10 days ago to meet the dispatch deadlines. And the key message at that point was the overall plan, we've achieved 62% against the 65% target. I'm pleased to report, as of last Friday, we've actually hit the 65% target now. Therefore, This year we've hit both targets of achieving 65% of the overall plan and 100% of the core plan, which is the main financial systems. Paragraph 4.1 obviously relates to those findings. There's no high priority or urgent recommendations identified in the work we've done in the last quarter. Appendix A, which is on page 121 to 23, highlights, shows the work we've done for the year. As per usual, the coding is where it's white on a black background. Those are the changes since the last quarter. There are no high priority recommendations I need to bring to your attention, and there are no other issues that I need to bring to your attention in terms of poor action of recommendations relating to any follow-up audits. So it continues to be a positive message, and obviously the next update will be the annual report, which I'll summarise all this up. There's still a few jobs outstanding for the current year, which will be completed in the next week or so, and into next year for finalisation through the drafting and finalisation process. And then when it comes to the June Audit Committee, I will bring my annual report, which will summarise all the work we've done and give an overall opinion on our systems of internal control operating during the year. Happy to take any questions or queries from any members of the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Has anybody got any questions with regard to this report, please? I see no hands raised. If we're all happy, then we'll go on to the recommendations, which are on page 119, which is that we note the content of the report and, if necessary, seek further clarifications, which nobody seemed to want any clarifications. So we'll take the note in of the report. Thank you. Let's just move on to agenda item 9, which is the draft internal audit plan, which again is being presented by Peter Williams. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the last item was the current year. This item now is next year. In terms of what we plan to carry out for 23-24, the proposed areas are attached in the appendix. It's currently out to consultation with strategic directors and heads of service. The way we prepare the plan is outlined in paragraph 5 of the report on page 126. Obviously, we carry forward jobs we haven't done this year with our achievement rate of 65%, so that equates to roughly 35%. We add in the core jobs, and then we got an overall sort of plan of all the areas we will cover over a certain period. Most of these we do on a 3-year cycle, some on a 2-year cycle, some on a 5-year cycle. So those due to be audited are added into the plan. We review things like the risk registers, new developments from audit minutes, and awaiting feedback from strategic directors or heads of service for any specific areas they want us to look at in terms of potential changes or concerns or areas of risk. Obviously, the plan is always flexible in terms of building in these things, but I don't expect significant change. But if there are any changes, I'll bring those back to you at the next meeting. In terms of paragraph 5.2, that outlines our level of resources. We've got approximately 1,050 audit days. It's about 5.5 equivalent full-time people we have in internal audit at present. The plan has got 1,375 days in it, which hence dividing the one by the other, we expect to achieve 75% of that. But we will prioritise that within the year in terms of the higher risk areas, the core areas, to make sure those areas are covered as planned. So that's the approach for the current year, very similar to the previous years. Like I said, out to consultation at the moment, and obviously anything from yourselves. And the other thing I bring to your attention is Appendix A has got the planned coverage, and Appendix B is what we call our internal audit charter. We do the internal audit charter, which sets out sort of roles and responsibilities, the way we do our work, objectives of audit, etc. And I bring that annually as an appendix to the audit plan. There's been very few changes this year, mainly it's due to title changes, where things that people are changed from chief officers to strategic directors and a couple of titles. But it's very minimal changes in that audit charter. It's very similar to previous years, but it sets out the sort of audit strategy, for want of a better word, of how we deliver the work. pleased to take any questions or answer any queries on any of that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Has anybody got any questions for him? Councillor Williams, I see your hand is raised.
I think Councillor Jones was ahead of me. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay,
Councillor Jones, you were first in the race. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. It was just a comment, really, Peter. I just found it reassuring that you're placing significant emphasis on high-risk areas, which obviously is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you for that. Right, Councillor Williams, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just well, I think you partly answered it. I was going to ask if there was a direct correlation in terms of sort of some of the audit findings, if you like, informing or adding to the risk register, given, for example, that we indicated there were 16 new risks this year. And the second question really was whether you've found that it's become harder or easier with the hybrid working to undertake the levels of audit required.
Thank you. Yes. No, the hybrid working, to answer the second part first, the hybrid working is working quite well. And I think that's, we're effectively at sort of electronic digital council now, and all the sort of papers we request and the sort of evidence for audit is usually sent to us electronically. So it's working quite well, to be honest with you. Some bits of the audit still do take place on a face-to-face basis where necessary. And you know, if they want face-to-face meetings, we're amenable to that as well. But no, it's working quite well, to be honest. And the first part of the question about the risks, yeah, if we've identified things in the audit that need subsequent follow-up or more detail, or things on the risk register that we can, not all the risks will need an audit input, but where they do, we will build down the plan and look at that. So yes, you know, I like to think it's, you know, a sort of a risk-based approach in terms of identifying new risks and high risks that are already within the council.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Ashley, you have a question?
Probably just following on from David Williams, actually, in terms of how Peter identifies risks, because the new matrix would be a bit of a gift to him with his numeric thing and spreadsheets. I just wondered how he goes with that.
It's a combination of things, basically. Councillor Ashley, you know, it will be the risk register, and it'll be a lot of judgments in terms of our knowledge of the authority. You take the systems I've outlined, we always audit the core financial systems. That's where the significant spend is in the authority. We always look at payroll and creditor payments, which probably covers 100% of the authority. We look at the ledger, the way the ledger is structured to make sure it's coded correctly. Therefore, there's sort of cumulative audit knowledge. You know, the team have been together quite a while now. We don't get a lot of disruption in terms of loss of resources. So their knowledge of the authority is quite good. We've got good relationships with the department. You know, we're not seen as, I don't want it to sound wrong, we're not seen as the enemy audit, you know what I mean? It's there to help, you know what I mean? I know you've probably heard that before, but, you know, people, when they do have issues and problems, they will come to us for advice and guidance, and I think that's quite a mature relationship we got with most of the services, from service director level, heads of service, and the rest of the staff in the authority. So, you know, we take all those sources, we read committee reports, like I said, we read risk registers, even what might be gone in other authorities. They may pick something up, a system problem in another authority. Is it similar in Torvine? Do we need to look at that? We take any sort of intelligence from any sources and see whether there needs an audit input in Torvine.
Chair, if I may come back, you're obviously on the ball with this. I certainly, between this committee and Community Council, I've learned how this audit. It's quite a detailed thing, as Nick Byrne said. There's quite a lot to sort of figure out with this, and the internal audit is quite an interesting aspect of it. As those of us that have been on community councils for a year find out, it's the detailed stuff which is fascinating. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. I think it's quite reassuring to think that everybody's got such a forward-thinking process here. So thank you, Peter, for that. Right, has anybody got any other questions or queries? If not, we'll move on to the recommendations, which are on page 127, that we accept this report. Everybody happy? Nobody wishes to abstain? We'll accept them as agreed. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 10, which is the Governance and Audit Committee self-assessment, which again is over to Peter Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a bit of introduction to this. There's a network within Wales called the Chairs of Audit Committee Network, which meet, I think, well, certainly annually, if not twice per annum. Catherine Pegden attended one recently, back towards the tail end of last year, and they undertook an exercise which was a sort of self-assessment exercise of the effectiveness of the audit committee, and as I suggested, perhaps it's something we might want to discuss and pursue as an audit committee. Done a bit of digging and done a bit of research, and my institute, CIPFA, which is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accounting, they have a document around self-assessment. It's quite a detailed document, and I've attached two elements to the report. Appendix A is just the element which looks at the effectiveness of the audit committee, which is what Catherine and her colleagues did at the network event. And then I've also attached the fuller document, which is a sort of self-assessment of the whole of the audit committee. And it's just open for discussion, really, and I'm sure Catherine would want to come in now in terms of whether you think it's a worthwhile exercise, what we ought to do, and do we do the short-term exercise at the moment in terms of the review of effectiveness, because we haven't sort of done a process like this before, and build on that and perhaps do a fuller one further down the line. The process is a sort of a self-assessment, but individuals will complete it. And I was thinking the way we work with individuals will complete it, I would be there to answer any queries for people and act as a bit of a sounding point. And then we just collate those scores into an overall document and discuss and assess those the output and work out what we need to do or any actions we think are relevant as a result of it. Hand over to Catherine if you want to add anything to that.
Thank you. Yes, for my sins, I was nominated to go to this All Wales conference that was online back in October, I think it was. And it was good to meet with other people from different backgrounds, different councils. There were people from fire brigades, from police, all sorts of different councils and governance audit committees. And part of the thing that we did was this self-assessment, and we were sent out the agendas, and we had to fill in what is on page 141 independently, and then we did feedback and discussion. And I think for me, being a layperson, not being on the inside of all the way the council works and that side of it, it highlighted some of my weaknesses that I wasn't quite sure what I did understand about this committee, what actually impact we do have. Audit and governance is quite a big committee with regard to the weight that we hold. And I felt the weight on my shoulders, and maybe I didn't feel the knowledge that went with that weight that I should have. So in filling in this, I was honest, and some of it brought up questions that maybe I needed some more information about. So I was wondering, especially for those lay members on this committee, whether you felt we'd like to do this assessment of how this committee impacts on the actual council. I don't know, I'm open to discussions. We just did the page 141. We didn't do the whole assessment. As Peter said, it's from a huge document with CIPFA. Whether we want to go to that extent, I don't know. But just these 10 questions on page 141 brought good discussion. Open to your ideas now. Sorry, Mark Rees, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this up. I'm thinking along exactly the same way that you are. I think this is a very, very useful exercise to do. I mean, the whole point of why we meet together is to provide assurance for the council and for the wider electorate that everything is all being done properly within the council, and we have to show that we are capable of doing our job properly. I mean, I'm involved as a volunteer board member of another organisation, and we are required to do a similar exercise of self-assessment to make sure that we've got the right skills to do the work. And when we identify weaknesses, then, you know, seek the help to try and upskill ourselves to make sure that we are doing our job properly. So to be perfectly honest, I'd be keen to go the whole hog with this, but to kick off with, if we've never done anything like this before, then let's tread carefully and do the sort of the initial assessment, and then see where we go with it. That's my view of it anyway. Thanks again. Cheers.
Right, thank you for that support. I'm going to be biased now and go to the other lay member, Mr. Kelleher.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would share my colleague Mark's sentiments on this. This is a really good opportunity to identify where my current weakness in the knowledge areas require to contribute positively to this work of this committee. I was thinking prior to this meeting also about as a relatively new member of the committee, you know, whether there are instruments we could adopt or adapt to help induct new members, particularly lay members, into the work of the council as well. So I'd welcome any initiatives that supports those goals.
Thank you for that support. Councillor Ashley, you have your hand raised.
I think lay members are extremely valuable, especially the work of this committee, but on scrutiny committees as well. Opportunity for some of the committees have more than others. I think it's education that got some, but over the years we will set a precedent for having training on scrutiny committees, and we've never been afraid as a council to have training. So the fact that this committee, which is quite a technical committee in a lot of cases, a lot of the work we do, to have self-evaluation of members of the committee is really quite important. What I will say, when I was inducted as a councillor, which was back in 2012, we had scrutiny training, and we also had available at the time local government association training, which was extremely valuable. I availed myself of it, and I do believe in the principle. And our council also does weekly seminars, which is so we expect people to. What we don't do, and perhaps we ought to do, is the evaluation process, because members come on like yourselves. A member of the council comes on straight, knows nothing, and then they have to acquire all this information. So we've actually got new members on the council at the moment who are busy acquiring stuff. Obviously, they do casework and they just sit on committees. But at the same time, evaluation was one of the most valuable things I did when I went on basic councillor training all that time back in 2012. I went on 4 sort of 2-day courses, and I got a bit of a certificate off the local government association. But this would be brilliant. I have no fear at all of doing something like this, because to be a better member of a committee is always useful. Scrutiny has gone through a lot of it. I'd welcome that back again. First of all, I believe you can come to my committee, the cross-cutting. You are members of that as well, I believe. I don't know. We always had lay members on our cross-cutting scrutiny when we did the big scrutiny. So I believe that still appertains. I'm not sure. We've had it from the scrutiny committees. I'm not sure if audit sits on there as well. Do you come to those meetings?
I'm not sure about that one. I think we'd have to investigate that one.
But what I'm saying, the value of evaluation and effectiveness of committees is important.
Right. Thank you for your support. So over to Councillor Williams. I think you're the last person with your hand raised.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd echo the comments that colleagues have raised here. I think it's probably too soon to try and do the big full-scale questionnaire, if I'm honest, because we're still in the learning curve, as Councillor Byrne and I have whilst taking account of the different roles that people have, i.e. those that are councillor members, those that are lay members, because some of the training and information needs may be different. But yes, I welcome this kind of evaluation approach, and this summary, and it chimes with a piece of work that we did with the Pensions Committee as well.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're going to go forward. I think we're going to start with a shorter self-assessment document. So the recommendations are on page 140, that we agree it's beneficial to undertake the self-assessment. Peter, can you explain how we're going to take this one forward?
Thank you, Chair. What I suggest is I'll get the material together in terms of I think it's about 8 to 10 questions, try and do a bit of a guidance note. I'll send it out. My contact details will be on it, so you can come back to me for any queries or things you want to clarify. And we probably allow a sort of a 2 or 3 week time scale for completion. And then once they're in, I'll collate them back in, and we probably set up not an audit committee meeting, but a separate session where we can discuss the findings, answers, and have a sort of group discussion about where we go forward. But I think the key thing is don't feel isolated when I send you the stuff, and any queries, just pick up the phone, drop me an email, and I'll try and answer any questions to support you in the way of the process. But I think it's important that everybody has a chance to feed into it individually before we have a potential a group discussion later on when I collate the information.
Right, we have a plan. Thank you. So you can look forward to finding it in your email box from Peter. Thank you. Right, we'll move on now to agenda item 11, which is the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards and Quality Assurance Improvement Process. And again, it's over to Peter.
This is my last agenda item for today, you'll be pleased to know. This is a similar theme. Obviously, the self-assessment we just talked about is about the self-assessment of the committee. Myself and my team also have to undergo a similar assessment on a once every 5 years basis. The last one we had was 2017, so we're just over the 5 years. I'm in the process of finalising that at the moment. Again, it's a document called the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. I complete the self-assessment process, and I get it externally accredited or externally marked, for want of a better word, by somebody else. I've engaged with a company called SWAP, which is the Southwest Area Project, who did it previously, like I said, 5 years ago. I'm more or less 75 to 80% through the self-assessment at the moment. I hope to have it finalised by the early part of April, and then the assessment will take place shortly after that. I'll be supplying them evidence and information. They may want to speak to members of the committee, they may want to speak to officers of the council as part of that validation and evidence gathering process. And then they'll assess me against the standards and give a report of whether we meet the standards or not. Paragraph 5.1 of my report outlines what the 3 possible outcomes are. One is generally conforms. That doesn't sound very positive, but that's the best you're going to get. Apparently, is generally conforms, which is where we were last time. And then there's partially conforms, obviously a lot of actions to address, or does not conform. So I'm hoping we will still be in the same category as last time, but obviously subject to the evaluation. So that's just the process I've outlined. Like I said, the timescale is hoping to have it sooner or later in the new financial year. It has slipped a bit, and apologies for that. And then attached to just a couple of appendices about some of the actions that most of them are in place from the last assessment, or things I've added, because we keep on assessing ourselves on a yearly basis, as well as the 5-year external assessment. And also the other appendix is what we call our quality assurance improvement process, how the quality assurance acts in the council in terms of how we issue work, how we sort of review the work, how we issue the work, to make sure we continue to meet professional standards in terms of what we deliver to our clients and service areas within 12 Vine. So please answer any questions on that process, but it's basically it's a self-assessment process for the internal audit team in terms of compliance with professional auditing standards.
Thank you for that. Has anybody got any questions with regard to this report? No, I see no hands raised. If that's the case, then we'll accept the recommendations unless it... Sorry, Mr. Williams?
Sorry, my apologies. Peter, but did you say that you would then, once you've undertaken this, you'd report back as to what the outcome was?
Yes.
All right. So we might expect that on a future committee, is it? Or?
Oh, yes, definitely, yes.
Yeah. It's just a clarification. Thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, I think the last one, the last report was, like I said, I think it was December 2017 or January 2018. They'll send the report and we present that at the audit committee with the findings and the sort of overall conclusion.
Something to look forward to in the future. Right, I see nobody else with any hands raised, so we will take the recommendations of the report. Okay, thank you. That takes us on to agenda item 12, which is the audit committee work programme. Again, Peter, your last item.
Yes, it's just for information. Obviously, we set up the annual work programme for the year, and I think from the items on the agenda today, I think we covered everything we planned to cover as part of that skeleton programme. So the audit committee has assessed the reports it need to in the year and received all the reports it need to, which is a positive. And there'll be a new programme which will come out as part of the agenda papers in June 2023 for next year's audit committee work programme.
Thank you for that. Has anybody got any questions with regard to that programme of work? No. Lovely. So we move on to the last item, which is the agenda item 13, which is the date of the next meeting, which will be on the 28th of June 2023. No. Sorry? Do you want to cover the training as well? Yeah, there is some. There is training now for everyone. The complaints process. A few meetings ago we asked, can we have training on the complaints process? This is going to run immediately after this meeting. So if you can all stay online and take part in that, that would be wonderful. It was scheduled at 12, but as we finished early, we're on hand to get the people in who are going to deliver the training in advance. Okay? So we will end this current meeting and we will look forward to the training. Do you want to